Okay, so everyone's talking about this dopamine detox thing, right? You've probably seen the headlines. Sounds kind of intense, huh? Maybe a little bit intriguing too, though.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things that gets thrown around a lot, but...
But what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you actually do a dopamine detox? And is it even worth it?
Right.
So that's what we're going to dive into today in this deep dive. We're going to be looking at all the stuff about how our brains get, like, hijacked by everything. You know, like social media, notifications, even, like, food and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk about, like, how do we actually break free from that?
Absolutely.
So I think a good place to start is, like, what is dopamine anyway?
Right.
Because we always hear it's the pleasure chemical.
Well, actually, that's a bit of an oversimplification.
Oh, okay.
It's not really about pleasure itself. It's more about the anticipation of pleasure.
Oh, interesting.
It's that drive to seek out rewards.
So it's like, it's not about the reward itself. It's about, like, the chase.
Exactly. The wanting.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, think about when you're scrolling through, like, Instagram, right? And you see that little notification pop up.
Yep.
And you're just like, I gotta click it.
You have to know.
Like, I see what it is.
That anticipation.
Yeah.
And it's not just social media, right? This, one of our sources calls it the neurotransmitter of more. It's everywhere.
Oh, interesting. The neurotransmitter of more.
It's why we constantly check email, refresh news feeds, reach for another cookie. We're wired to crave more.
Like, our brain just wants more stimulation.
It does, yeah.
It's, like, never satisfied.
Well, and the scary thing is there are entire industries that are built around exploiting this.
Oh, yeah.
Algorithms designed to keep us hooked, constantly feeding us content tailored to trigger those dopamine releases.
Like, it's designed to keep us scrolling and clicking and consuming. And then you think about, like, okay, how does this affect, like, our long-term goals?
Right. It's really hard to think long-term when you're constantly bombarded with instant gratification.
Makes sense.
It's like, remember Amazon, right? They didn't turn a profit for years.
Yeah.
Because Jeff Bezos was laser focused on building a sustainable business. He wasn't chasing quick wins.
Yeah, and that's so rare these days.
It is.
Everyone wants everything right now.
Right.
Like, instant results.
Yes, you're constantly battling those urges.
So how do we escape this cycle then?
Well, it's not easy. Our source talks about these stimulation traps that our minds play on us.
Okay, stimulation traps. What are those?
Basically, they're these justifications our brains use to keep us hooked on that dopamine rush.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Sure. One common one is the returning to work is easy illusion.
Oh, I know that one.
We tell ourselves we can check social media for just a few minutes, then easily jump back into that report.
Right. It never works that way.
It rarely does.
No, it's like once I'm down that Instagram rabbit hole, it's over.
Right, you're gone.
Okay, what else? Are there other stimulation traps?
Yeah, there's the you can do it later trap.
Oh, yeah.
Where we push aside important tasks because we're caught in the excitement of whatever's grabbing our attention right now.
Oh, yeah. I'll just watch one more YouTube video, then I'll get started.
That's it.
Classic.
And then there's confusing excitement with fulfillment.
Oh, okay.
We get so caught up in the anticipation of that next dopamine hit that we lose sight of the things that actually bring us true satisfaction.
Right. So it's not just about feeling good. It's about doing things that actually matter.
In the long run.
Long term. Okay.
And finally, there's the ever-present you're missing out fear.
FOMO,
yeah.
That constant pressure to stay connected.
To be in the loop.
Even if it's like, oh, not good for us.
Even if it's detrimental, yeah.
So given all these traps, where does a dopamine detox come in?
Right. Well, a dopamine detox is essentially a way to reset your brain's reward system.
Oh, okay.
Break free from this constant state of overstimulation.
So it's not about like deprivation. It's about like regaining control.
Right. It's about taking a step back, reassessing what's truly important.
Okay. So how does that actually work?
Well, there are different approaches. Our source outlines 3 main types of dopamine detoxes.
Okay.
You've got the 48-hour complete detox, the 24-hour detox, and then the partial detox.
Okay. So like different levels of intensity.
Exactly. You can choose what works best for you, your lifestyle.
Okay. Let's break those down then. Like, what does a 48-hour detox actually look like?
The 48-hour one is definitely the most challenging.
Okay.
It involves eliminating most sources of external stimulation for a full 2 days.
So no phone, no internet, no Netflix.
Nope.
What about food?
Yeah, you're going to be limiting those things too, especially sugary treats, highly processed foods, anything that provides those quick dopamine hits.
Wow. Okay, that sounds intense, but also like potentially really effective.
It can be.
Okay, and what about the 24-hour detox?
The 24-hour one follows the same principles, but obviously it's a little bit more manageable.
Yeah.
You might not experience this dramatic a reset, but it's still a good way to take a step back, reconnect with yourself.
Okay, so that's like a good starting point, maybe?
Yeah, could be.
And then there's the partial detox.
Right.
What's that about?
That's a more targeted approach. Instead of eliminating all stimulation, you focus on identifying your biggest trigger and cutting it out
Oh, okay.
for a specific period of time.
So like if social media is your downfall,
Yeah,
you might commit to like a week without it, a month without it.
exactly. It's all about customizing the detox to your needs and challenges.
Okay, that's cool. But like what do you do during a detox? It's not just sitting around, right?
No, definitely not. Our source highlights activities like meditation, spending time in nature, reading, having deep conversations.
Oh.
It's about replacing empty distractions with things that actually nourish your mind and soul.
So it's not about avoiding pleasure altogether. It's about finding like healthier sources of it.
Exactly. Finding those things that bring you true, lasting satisfaction.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But how do we actually make a dopamine detox successful? Like, practically speaking, where do we even begin?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next. Our source provides a really clear 3-step method that anyone can follow.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into those steps in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so we left off talking about how to make a dopamine detox successful.
Yeah, like how do we actually put this into practice?
Well, lucky for us, our source breaks it down into 3 super clear steps.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Oh,
Lay it on me. What's step 1?
first things first, you got to identify your biggest distractions.
Okay, so call out the enemy.
Precisely. And our source actually suggests creating 2 lists for this, a cans list
Cans.
and a can'ts list.
Okay, so the cans list would be like all the things that are good for you.
Exactly. Things that align with your goals, your values, the stuff you actually want to be spending more time on.
Okay, got it. So the cans list is all the not so good stuff.
Yeah, the things that are sucking up your time and energy.
Yeah.
The things you want to eliminate or at least cut back on.
Man, that's going to be a long list for me. I'm already thinking about all the things I need to put on there. But I like
Yeah.
it. It makes you really think about what's truly important. So once you've identified those distractions, what's next?
Step 2 is all about adding friction.
Friction. Okay, explain that one.
It's about making it harder to engage in those unwanted behaviors and easier to engage in the desired ones.
Okay, so like if you want to stop checking your phone so much, you wouldn't keep it right next to you while you're working.
Exactly. That would just be asking for trouble.
Yeah, for real. And the idea is to like create some distance between yourself and the temptation.
Precisely. You could put your phone in another room, turn off notifications, even use one of those app blockers.
Oh yeah, those are good.
Our source actually recommends deleting those tempting apps altogether,
Whoa, that's hardcore.
at least temporarily,
Oh.
just to remove the temptation.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. But how do we make the good stuff easier?
That's the other side of the coin. So if you want to meditate every morning, you set up a dedicated space, maybe with your cushion, a diffuser, whatever. Helps you get in the zone.
Okay, so it's all about setting yourself up for success. I dig it.
It is, making it as easy as possible to do the things you want to do.
Okay, so we've identified our distractions, we've added friction. What's the final step?
Step 3 is to start first thing in the morning,
Ooh, why is that so important?
because your willpower is usually strongest in the morning.
That's true. I'm way more likely to make good choices early in the day.
Exactly. So if you can start your day with a positive, focused routine, you're much more likely to stay on track.
So, like, resist the urge to grab your phone and scroll through social media as soon as you wake up.
Yep. Try swapping that out for something calming. Meditation, journaling, maybe just enjoying a cup of coffee while you connect with your breath.
I love that. It's like setting the tone for a more intentional day.
Exactly.
But even with all this, it can be hard to stay focused, right? Especially in a world that's designed to distract us. The source talks about these closed systems. What exactly are those?
Think about the things that lead you down a rabbit hole of distractions.
Ooh, yeah. Like checking email, browsing social media, just surfing the web in general.
Right. The source calls those open systems.
Because they're basically endless.
Exactly. You could spend hours scrolling through Instagram, clicking from one article to the next. There's no clear endpoint.
So you just get lost in that cycle of seeking the next dopamine hit.
Yep. Closed systems, on the other hand, are more contained. They have boundaries, a defined endpoint.
Okay, so like what's an example of a closed system?
The source uses the example of working on a Word document. You open it, you write, you edit, you close it.
Okay. There's a sense of completion there.
Right. You've achieved something tangible.
So how do we apply that idea to like everyday life?
It starts with awareness. Notice what pulls you into those open system traps. Then you start creating more closed systems for the things you want to focus on.
So instead of checking email first thing, which is an open system, I could create a closed system for my morning routine.
Exactly. A dedicated space for meditation, for journaling, no phone, no distractions.
I like that. And then when it comes to work, I could turn off notifications, close unnecessary tabs, and just focus on one task at a time until it's done.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Creating those pockets of focused time where you can fully immerse yourself in what you're doing.
Mini detoxes throughout the day. I love it. But let's be real, even with the best intentions, we're going to slip up sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. We're human. It's not about being perfect. The source actually dedicates a whole section to avoiding dopamine relapse.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, what happens when we fall off the wagon?
Well, the first step is self-awareness. The more you can notice when you're starting to get pulled back into that cycle of overstimulation, the better equipped you'll be to resist it.
So paying attention to those little cues, like that feeling of restlessness or the urge to check your phone, even though you know you shouldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, relapse is normal.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up if it happens. It's about progress, not perfection.
That's a good reminder.
And that's where having a contingency plan comes in.
A contingency plan.
Yeah, like a plan for when you do relapse.
Okay, so how do we create one of those?
Well, first, you got to identify your triggers, the situations that are most likely to make you relapse. Maybe it's feeling stressed, maybe it's being in a certain environment. Then you create a plan for how you'll handle those situations.
So like, if I know I tend to reach for my phone when I'm stressed, I could have a plan to go for a walk instead.
Exactly. Or do some deep breathing, listen to calming music, anything that helps you shift gears.
Love that. Healthy coping mechanisms, so we're not just white knuckling it through those tough moments.
Nope. You've got tools to support you. Our source also talks about cultivating what it calls here and now neurotransmitters.
Here and now neurotransmitters. What are those?
We've been talking a lot about dopamine, right? Which is all about seeking pleasure in the future. But there are other neurotransmitters that are associated with contentment, peace, connection in the present moment.
So it's about shifting our focus from chasing that next dopamine hit to finding fulfillment in the here and now.
Precisely. So we've talked about a lot in this deep dive on dopamine detoxing, like how our brains get hijacked by those dopamine hits.
Totally. And how those stimulation traps sneak up on us. And then, of course, creating those closed systems to help us, focus.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is. So I'm curious, what's really sticking with you?
Well, what I keep coming back to is that this isn't about, denying yourself all pleasure.
Right. It's not about becoming like some kind of robot.
Exactly. It's about understanding how your brain works and then making choices that are in line with, what's really important to you.
It's like we're given this amazing tool, our brain, but then no one tells us how to use it.
Right.
So figuring out these dopamine loops and how they can work against us, that's actually really empowering, I think.
I agree. It means we can actually do something about it.
Yeah. So if someone's listening and they're feeling kind of overwhelmed, where do I even start? What's one thing they could do today to reclaim some of their focus?
We talked about starting your day intentionally, right?
Yeah.
Instead of grabbing your phone first thing, what if you tried something that nourishes you instead?
Oh, I love that.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Yeah. 5 minutes of meditation or journaling or just sitting with a cup of tea and noticing the sounds around you.
Exactly.
It's like breaking that autopilot, It
is. It's about starting your day on your terms.
Totally. Another thing that really resonated with me was adding friction.
Oh, yeah. Such a simple concept, but so effective.
Right. If I want to cut back on social media, I could just log out of all my accounts or delete the apps even.
It's amazing how much of a difference that can make.
Yeah. It's making those bad habits just a little bit harder to do.
And the good habits a little bit easier.
Exactly. But we also got to remember that this is a journey, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about being perfect.
No one's perfect.
We're all going to have days where we slip up.
It happens. The important thing is to notice it and then just gently guide yourself back on track.
Yeah. And even when we do slip up, we can still practice cultivating those here and now neurotransmitters.
Yeah.
Instead of always chasing that next dopamine rush, we can try to find some contentment, some peace right here in the present moment.
And that's something you can do anytime, anywhere.
Totally. Like, meditation is great, but it's not the only option.
Nope. You can go for a walk in nature. Listen to music. Have a deep conversation with someone you care about.
It's about, like, slowing down, tuning in, and appreciating the little things.
Exactly. Filling your life with those simple joys.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. This whole dopamine detox thing isn't about deprivation.
It's about finding a healthier balance.
Yeah, it's about rediscovering those things that truly nourish us.
The things that make life worth living.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. Now that you know how your brain is being hijacked, what's one small change you can make today to reclaim some of your focus? Maybe you put your phone in another room while you're working, or maybe you swap out that afternoon cookie for a piece of fruit and a walk outside.
It doesn't have to be a huge change.
No, even the smallest steps can make a big difference over time. So what will your first step be?